Hello there. We are glad that you made time to join us again in spite of all that the country is going through right now. My name is Florence Ndongo and this is the Southeast segment of our daily dose of Zoom in Africa.
Yes, today marks the second day of the 3 days country morning. I am Henry Korea. Welcome to the show.
Well, and on today's show, we are going to discuss terrorism and general security. On Saturday, armed gunmen stormed the Westgate shopping mall in Westlands, taking over 1,000 people hostage. At first, it was thought to be a bank robbery, but soon it dawned on all policemen and civilians alike that this was not robbery, but it was a full-blown terrorist attack.
The siege that threatened to bring the whole country to its knees and captured worldwide attention took 4 days before it came to a halt, involving both local and international military, and so close to 70 people dead and over 250 others injured, both physically and psychologically. This seemed to be the climax of the terrorist attacks that have been experienced since last year.
However, as a result of this, the biggest question that lingers in everyone's mind is just how safe are we really in our own country with the security checks that happen at supermarkets and hotel entrances. Is it really enough? And to help us understand this and other security matters more, we are joined by Mr. John Musundi, a risk management specialist. And at this point, I would like to remind you our SMS line is 21144. If you have any question in regards to risk management in terms of security, do so, because I believe our guest on set is more than capable to answer all your questions. Mr. Musundi, welcome to GBS and specifically Zoom in Africa.
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah, maybe to begin with, John Andrews Musundi. Who is John Andrews Musundi?
John Andrews Musundi, I was born and raised in Kenya, and basically I went to school, obviously, in Kenya. After that, I went to college. Then I joined the army. I served in the army for 6 years. Then I left the army and decided to set up my own farm that does risk management. And the key thing was that we have a situation in our country whereby focus and security has been lax. And we've been having people operating as quacks in terms of they don't offer specialized services in security. So I decided to set up my own farm and also give back to the country and also the community.
You know, it's said that once a soldier, always a soldier. Does that apply?
Yes, sir, that applies because definitely what you do when you join the army, they change the way you think. They instill discipline in you. They instill focus in you. And basically, you're a person who works on time and adhere to the principles and the guidelines that are laid down.
Today we are discussing about terrorism, even as we enter the second day of mourning, as our president said. I would want, in your own understanding as a former army man, and now you're running a risk management in terms of security, tell us your understanding, or what would you say actually terrorism is, because people are out there thinking, yeah, it's all about deaths, but there is a lot of, there are so many things about terrorism perhaps that people don't know.
Terrorism involves basically, first is the physical aspect, whereby we have physical attack on a specific country, and also it boils down to the psychological attack, whereby we also have the terrorists might try to play the psychological card to get people into getting scared, for example, going to specific places. Now, basically what we had is that we had an impartation of both, whereby we had Al-Shabaab coming into a country and taking hostages at the Westgate, and we also had them on Twitter, whereby they were giving implications that they might attack at other places. Now that was a psychological attack to our country. And it boils down to us as a country moving forward and also putting systems in place to avert such attacks.
Systems are already in place in one way or another. It's only that maybe they are not streamlined, or they're like starting with the National Intelligence, the National Security Intelligence Service. What is your take? Because we see Mike Sonko coming up saying that in a duration of about 3 months, he had alerted them through 2 women who had approached him. Do you think it's a laxity of NSIS, or where actually have we gone wrong in detecting terror?
In detecting terror, when it comes to issues concerning the National Intelligence Service, first and foremost, we must bear in mind that they do collection on a daily basis, collection of information and verifying of the same. Now, it's an issue that's very sensitive because once you're given information about a particular issue, it must go through the normal process to ascertain authenticity of the message. You can't just come in like you're coming to a shop and give information and expect it to be acted upon. But on the other hand, we should look at the fact that they should have considered what, for example, the Honorable Mheshimiwa Sonko said, that he gave information to the relevant authorities and it wasn't acted upon. Now, there should be a system whereby this, once information comes in, you act on it immediately. Not passing blame to anyone, but those are things that should have been put in place. Now, the person who failed to pass that information forward to the relevant authority should be held accountable and also answerable to reasons as to why he or she did not act on that information. Yeah.
And as my co-host Henry right here stated, he said that Mike Sonko was given this information by 2 women, and this got me thinking, when I have such information that involves security of the entire country, where should I report first? Maybe this is something went wrong. Do I go to Mheshimiwa? Because I believe there are people who are in charge of the security in this country. Where do I begin if I know really, or I suspect, or I've seen something that would jeopardize the peace of this country? Where do I report to first?
First and foremost, you should go to the DCIO, because in every police station there's a DCIO, that's a District Intelligence Officer. Now, once you go there, you should present yourself and give the information to him, because it's a system that's supposed to be fluid. If you have information, you approach a particular individual, you have information about a particular individual, you go to the person who is in charge of intelligence in the district or the county level, you give them information and they'll pass it up the chain. Now, the situation whereby we have the 2 ladies going to the Honorable Mheshimiwa also leaves one to question in terms of is the system working? In terms of do you have really access to relevant people? Is the country as a whole educated in terms of who do I report to when I have information, especially pertaining to terror threats? Who do I report to? Now, that creates a vacuum whereby, you see, people don't know who to go to if such instances occur. So there should be a sensitization where the public is told, when you have this information, you can contact this particular person and it will be followed up.
Okay, remember viewer, today we are discussing about the national security and especially to be more specific on terrorism. So if you have any views, questions or comments, we are glad to respond to them through even our guest, John Andrew Musundi, who is a risk management specialist. So please SMS your views, questions or comments through the line 21144 and we'll be more than glad to answer them. And Mr. Musundi, I would love to know from you, is it that on a personal basis that Kenyans kind of don't have a proactive approach to security matters? Because most of the times we only act after it has happened.
The only issue I would like to point out is that there is a lack of security awareness enhancement in our training programs, right from primary level to secondary to corporate level, because we have a scenario whereby the public is not sensitized enough on issues related to security. That leaves a big loophole. You find a situation whereby most of us Kenyans tend to run towards the scene instead of away from a scene. And it's supposed to be the other way, vice versa, whereby when you hear something has happened at a particular place, leave the people who are responsible to do that to go do that. And I know some people will say we don't have working mechanisms that can prevent such things. That's why we tend to run towards the scene in order to help. But you see, if we had a fluid system whereby we would educate people, we would be able to avert such instances. And also we would be able to minimize casualties. For example, if, you know, a terrorist is coming in, or a person is going to do something in a particular place, you'll be able to lie down first, because it's a tense situation, wait until things are calm, then try and make a move if you can, or just stay in the same position that you are in. So I think it boils down to security awareness to the general public.
Okay.
Yeah.
And maybe right now it's when we are trying to collect pieces, piece by piece, because we see on that same Saturday, the 21st of September, is the International Peace Day, of which this happened. So I don't know, was this more of a timing thing, to be more specific on the objective?
To be specific, I would say it's something they had pre-planned, because when somebody attacks a particular institution, there's a target acquisition cycle. You just don't go in and plan to attack a particular building. It's something they had done for a period of time. And they also, it's my assumption, is that they also did a mock drill that maybe was recognized or not recognized by the persons over there. So it's something that's quite comprehensively done and planned to the nitty-gritties. And I think also us as security personnel, we should also be aware that the criminals or the people that are coming in to do this are also more advanced in what they do. They are people who are educated, they know what they're doing, and also it doesn't depend on race or a particular religion, because they come from across board. Yeah.
Okay. And sorry for that, you know, talking about the International Peace Day, we see the theme is educating children when it comes to matters of peace and security. So I don't know how we can work out this out, because maybe the education curricula or some sort kind of thing, because even what Mr. John is saying, that as early as from primary school, let's learn about security. I don't know, have you taken part in a security drill or some kind of a thing of the sort?
No, the farthest I've ever gone is wishing I knew taekwondo. That's all.
Oh, okay. So you see, these are the kind of things we are talking about. At least be aware of a few security measures. Right now we are going to watch the first video of our segment, and then we get back on set.
Saturday, 11:30 a.m., and the country is subjected to an anxious and speculative situation, with breaking news from various local media reporting that a known number of gunmen have invaded the prestigious Westgate Mall, shooting civilians indiscriminately.
Uchunge wako na telescope, wako na scope, binoculars, utamaliza. Yes, wamemaliza mtu hapa. Yes, they have binoculars.
It is at this juncture that a rapid response from the security officers is invoked after an alert that things are not well at the shopping mall in the country's capital. The same response by other humanitarian aid agencies. Reports at this time have it that the gunmen are heavily armed and organized, shooting at point-blank range, and indeed have held many hostage. Given the complex structure of the upmarket shopping mall, many civilians are rescued, some finding their way through and escaping the horrible situation. However, many are reportedly dead and even more injured, some nursing very critical gun and grenade shrapnel injuries. The nearby hospitals serve as the safe haven for many of the injured, thanks to the aid from humanitarian organizations like the Kenya Red Cross. With and without the shopping mall, a heavily engaged combat between the unknown assailants against the special squads from the General Service Unit and other internal security agencies characterizes the atmosphere. A situation that only Kenyans observe as what they are used to in movies. Hours have passed and sporadic and persistent gunshots are still being heard, with the situation gradually getting delicate. No word from the government as yet, but a confirmation from social media by the Interior Ministry and the Office of the Inspector General of Police that gunmen have taken hostage a number of civilians at the Westgate Mall. The Inspector General presents himself at the scene of the incident, affirming that they are under control and are doing everything to ensure that the situation is contained.
They were aiming at me. And then I got down. Risasi ilipita.
Darkness is gradually closing in and patience running out from many Kenyans who are anxious to know what's happening inside the shopping mall. The death toll, as reported by the Red Cross, gets worrying as the security operation is further heightened to a multi-agency undertaking. As the situation persists, no official word from the Commander-in-Chief, but the Deputy President from abroad through social media commits the government's relentless intention to contain the situation. As a reality dawns that the entire situation might take longer, unity calls carries the day and various political persons speak to the nation.
Very tragic moment for the nation of Kenya. It's exactly 16 years since we had a terrorist attack which claimed over 250 lives of our people. This is yet another one of those attacks by terrorist gangs. The situation in the whole country. This is not an isolated incident, as you may know, that we have witnessed attacks in Garissa in the past, in Wajir, in Mombasa, and so on. And we know that the intention is to intimidate and blackmail the people of Kenya.
Emotional but firm, they assure the country that all is under control and encourage the entire country to remain united.
Whatever our religion, whatever our creed, whatever our race, whatever our ethnicity, whatever our political persuasion, we must stand together.
The affirmation and sentiments confirm the attack as a terrorist undertaking. At this time, at the battlefront inside the shopping mall, the Kenya Defence Forces have taken charge of the combat just to supplement the effort by the different interior security agencies. The country counts the night of day one, remaining on high alert and solidified as efforts to overcome the horrible situation are on course. The better part of Saturday's night operation is reported by the media as heavily engaged, with the Kenya Defence Forces claiming control of some floors of the embattled building. Sunday morning and the country wakes up to the reality that we are dealing with a very delicate situation. The death toll rises significantly, but with a resolve of remaining unified, the mood in the entire country is changed. Show of solidarity and patriotism reportedly a plus the country boasts thanks to the trying moment. At this point, the whole world joins the country cognizant that terrorism is not an isolated case. Certainly, most of the victims of the mall attack reported as citizens of friendly countries. From blood donation to relevant humanitarian aid donation to prayers, Kenyans closed ranks in the earliest opportunity, exhibiting solidarity as the Kenya Defence Forces continues with the coercion. At this very day, leaders exude a commendable unity, committing to tackle the challenge with a bipartisan approach. The unity calls work out as Kenyans show their trust in the operation being carried out by the Kenya Defence Forces. Day 2 elapses with good report that the Kenya Defence Forces has taken control of most parts of the building. 3 days down the line, and the KDF is still assuring the entire country that all is under their control. Quite notable on day 3 at around 1:18 p.m, smoke is seen billowing from the embattled mall, raising suspicion that were later allayed by the top security officials.
Our resolve to defend our country has never been higher. And we want to say that we will take the war to the criminals' doorsteps.
After the first fire is brought down, another fire breaks out. Questions of whether it's a smoke screen that the Al-Shabaab jihadists are trying to use to escape emerges, but no clear communication from the authorities, even as it's established that the fire could be a making of the KDF. Some minutes after midnight, reliable sources intimates to GBS reporters at the scene that the KDF have captured and are in control of the entire building and have neutralized the jihadists. Quite a new development, but expected to be broken by the president.
Our confrontation with the terrorists at the Westgate Mall left 240 casualties. I report with great sadness that 61 civilians lost their lives in the attack. 6 security officers also made the ultimate sacrifice to defeat the criminals. Forensic teams are still at the scene of the tragedy and will put together a final report. Towards the tail end of the operation, 3 floors of the Westgate Mall collapsed, and there are several bodies still trapped in the rubble, including the terrorists. Starting tomorrow, I have instructed the Interior Ministry to keep Kenyans informed of the progress of the forensic investigations. To the honor and memory of those who lost their lives in this attack, I have declared 3 days of national mourning starting tomorrow, during which official flags will fly at half-mast throughout the country. Ladies and gentlemen, as I had vowed earlier, we have ashamed and defeated our attackers. That part of our task has been completed by our multi-agency security team. 5 terrorists were killed with gunfire. 11 suspects are in custody in connection with the attack. Intelligence reports had suggested that a British woman and 2 or 3 American citizens may have been involved in the attack. We cannot confirm the details at present, but forensic experts are working to ascertain the nationalities of the terrorists. I promise that we shall have a full accountability for the mindless destruction, deaths, pain, loss, and suffering we have all undergone as a national family. These cowards will meet justice, as will their accomplices and patrons, wherever they are. Fellow Kenyans and friends of Kenya, our solidarity, patience, and resolve has seen us through the worst of this crisis. It is to you that I turn for strength, love, and aid to those affected by this encounter with the forces of evil. You came out in ways that exceeded the wildest expectations. You have been generous, compassionate, and patriotic. I am deeply moved and very proud to be your president.
The fourth-day counting and debate of the Al-Shabaab insurgency forms the topic of conversation, and terror attack highlighted as a threat and a challenge to the entire world.
Welcome back. This is a Sauti segment, and today we are all about security. And earlier we had asked you to send in your question, your comments. We have a guest on set who will be answering most of your questions. And this comes just after conquering the terror that was unleashed at the Westgate Mall after Kenyans became victorious over and over again. So 2144 is our SMS line. Ask any questions that you have regarding security, knowing that a lot of people in most instances, they really don't know what to do and how to react. And that is why today we have a specialist on set to discuss all about issues of security. Well, before we even go further, I would want to hear from you as an expert. How do you think we handled the situation, the Westgate siege?
Considering the fact that it was the first time it was happening in Kenya, I would say it was well handled, and also it brought about the big question that we should have additional measures put in place. Because from a tactical point of view, is that when we had the KDF going in, they did the best job in terms of securing the hostages, in terms of also defeating the hostage takers. And we also have in mind that the measures that should be put in place are things that are quite necessary, and they will help us even tackle future eventualities that may arise.
We are talking about a very kind of sophisticated building when it comes to the way it's built, the Westgate. And I would just love to know from you, before even the KDF came in, we had other special units. We had the Kenya Police, we had the GSU coming on the ground. How do you think them themselves handled this? Because at one point I saw the Inspector General, Kimayo himself, was on the ground, and things were not actually coordinated very well in the very first beginning. I would love to know from you, how should the police units, kind of be more beefed up when it comes to handling such kind of matters?
First and foremost, let me say, when the incident happened, we had the plainclothes police who came in and first and foremost secured the area. And they formed the perimeter, and the main thing that averted them from going inside was the fact that the terrorists had superior weapons. Now, considering that fact, is that the kind of weapons being used by one party versus another party will deter obvious one party from doing his or her job. The next thing is that we should have had in place like a clear system that defines a clear command structure. Case in point being that if we had the guy in charge of Disaster Operations Center coordinating all the efforts in terms of, we should have had a command center being set up initially, even 20 minutes after the response, so that all coordinated efforts come from one particular body. And that would have also eased a few things. But these are things that we should look at in future. And also conducting drills in similar locations with multi-agencies, not only the army, but also the regular police and also the special police units.
Yeah, you mentioned of weapons, and I'm just kind of looking at the budget whereby the security officers were handed around 67 million or billion. I'll confirm that for. But do you think that we have done enough for the security officers when it comes to the financial aspect?
We had a scenario whereby the Inspector General was asking for the budget for the police, the budgetary allocation for the police to be increased. This was due to the fact that he was saying that we need more equipment. And I remember he continued saying that it's for equipping. And we also had a case in point that the other day a member of parliament saying that they allocated more funds to also the National Intelligence Service for equipment. But this being our country is that we should allocate more to equipping our officers, both on ground, so that when they tackle a similar incident, blame cannot be passed to maybe the government in terms of not equipping the people well, but we would be talking about different issues. Because I'm pretty much sure in terms of training, our officers are well trained. They've trained with the best Israelis, Americans, and the British. So the only issue that's remaining is actually equipping them well. Yeah.
And now let's go back to the people, the civilians. After that attack, people actually realized when it comes to security, it's not all about the police. It's not all about KDF. Also, us as individuals, as the people of Kenya, we have a responsibility. Not only during the Westgate incident, we've seen where a building collapse, guys go to watch, and others die. Because of curiosity. Also during the Westgate siege, we saw people wanting to go and actually see it live there. And also we saw the media being taken far away from the mall. There are guys who are just sitting at home speculating and actually tweeting things which are not right, maybe causing more fear, or maybe even giving out information out there that should not be out in the public, maybe should be for the police themselves. When it comes to us as the public, what is our responsibility? What should we be doing? Because we're not supposed to be in such a place. We're not supposed to be perhaps tweeting things that we're not even sure of. How would you advise the public when such a thing happened? What should we be doing? Even those people who are actually not perhaps in the mall or have not been attacked themselves, what should we be doing?
First and foremost is that we should avoid going to the scene, because going to the scene puts you also in danger. We have a scenario whereby you might be affected, and inadvertently it will mean that the guys who have come in to rescue the people who are inside will be forced to rescue you yourself. And we see in such an incident, you are not sure whether these guys had much more military grade weapons than they were purported to have, or even had explosives. Now, that's the reason why when everything settled down, they had to push even the media guys to about 200 to 300 meters. Now, that's a basic standard of quadrant the area. So when an area is quadrant, you should avoid trying to get inside that particular area and try to, because curiosity killed the cat. You know, people try to know what's going on over there. So you should definitely avoid that. And another thing is that from even in our day-to-day activities, once you are affected with such an incident, you should avoid tweeting things that are not credible, or even giving information that's not credible, because you tend to put the people who are affected directly in a position whereby one can even be traumatized beyond that particular period. We saw a number of people who were tweeting things information that were not ascertained. And also this caused a rift in terms of, we had a person saying that the lady escaped. Then it turned out to be that the lady is actually a lady who works in Kenya. So you see, you're putting an innocent person in a position that he or she is not supposed to be in. So we should always wait for information to come from one particular source. And information coming from one particular source is much more credible and will put the persons affected at ease.
Yeah, and talking about having information coming from one credible source, right now we are waiting for the forensic department to give us a report on if they have been able to unravel the rumble and what they have found there, and also conduct kind of the ballistic, the fingerprinting and all other kind of forensic investigations. So we still urge the public, just like the president said, to be patient and wait for this report to be out. But right now we still continue. We have one SMS. It says, I wish those in hospital a quick recovery, and Kenyans, we pray for you, for our country. I'm Lucy Wanjiko from Dandora. Yes, right now we are going to watch the second video of our segment, and then we'll get back as we discuss more on the forensic part of it.
Perhaps the question that lingers in the minds of the entire Kenyan population is just how vulnerable is our security system compared to the sophisticated weapons that are in the hands of militants and terrorists who will spare no opportunity to kill, maim and destroy property without abandon.
Security is a major concern in Nairobi in terms of theft and carjackings and stuff like that. What happened at the Westgate was of a different category. No security company was probably expecting something of this magnitude. Even these guys who are really searching people on the gates, they're probably looking for small weapons or knives, or these things that lead to this robberies, but not of this magnitude. Kenya is a very peaceful country. We've never seen something like this, so we don't know what to expect. Now everything has changed.
Just how well can we be prepared against terrorists? Should we befriend jihadists or consistently fight them with singular resolve both within and without our borders?
But how much can you do really? Unless you make like airport style everywhere and have those scanner machines where you're literally passing your keys, your mobile phones. Every time the machine beeps, you're to and fro. They strip you down to your belt and your shoes. This operation, these guys did not go in with these things. This thing was happening way before. Even if the security at the gate was very strong now, this thing would have still happened.
Kenya being rated an averagely peaceful country, the greatest security risk is usually posed by terrorists. Some people still feel that no shopping mall will ever be secured enough against any properly planned terrorist attack unless intelligence machinery is properly employed to detect and prevent it from happening in the first place. Our porous borders and those security agents that man them will really come under scrutiny after the recent said events at the Westgate Mall.
Ama foreigners walipokuja hawakuchunguzwa, maybe kwa airport ama pale waliingilia, maybe kwa borders hawakuangaliwa wamebeba nini, na hizi si vitu ambazo zimetengenezewa hapo nchini, maybe zimetoka ng'ambo zikaletwa wakapita nazo kwa borders zetu, maybe kwa borders hawakufanyiwa screening.
There is also the question of inadequate equipment of the door security guards at various entrances of public utilities in major cities in Kenya.
Okay, na kwa maoni yangu naona kwamba usalama unafaa uimarishwe. Katika malls tunapatanga majority wale wako huko ni securities wa kama G4S ama hizo securities zingine ambao maybe hawana, tunaweza sema wako na vifaa maalum lakini hawajui jinsi ya kuzitumia, na hata kama wanajua jinsi ya kuzitumia hawana silaha za kukabiliana na maadui wetu. So naona hapo hivyo askari ama polisi wanafaa kuweka hapo at least waweze kulinda usalama wa raia wa wananchi wa Kenya.
Okay, security around malls and supermarkets and public utilities iko so low, as in kama our security guards wenye wanakuanga kwa gates like scanning you for anything you're carrying. I think those things that they use, they are like fakes, because sometimes they can't detect that you have maybe a coin on your pocket. Okay, aita kuambia maybe you have a coin, or training yao pia mimi naona inakuwa poor, because these guys ukiweza mwambia can you identify a bomb, I identify a bomb, but he has that big mirror looking under like a car looking for a bomb, while at least ajui vile bomb inakaa.
The humbleness in the Kenyans, I think another 2-3 months, this will be forgotten. That's for sure. I tell you now.
Yeah, actually that soundbite by that man brings up the very big question. How do you go looking for a bomb of which you don't know even how it looks like? And it raises a very big question. And Florence is better placed because she did a story on something similar to that.
Yeah, you know, when the Westgate issue, when it was under siege, everywhere you'd go to the malls, those that were not affected and were a bit far away from Westlands, they were actually operating. They went back to their normal routine. But when I went for a spot check, I found they were still using the detectors, the metal detectors, and also, like that gentleman said, I don't know what to call that thing that has a mirror, and he's actually saying, how do you check out a bomb? You don't even know how it looks like. And then another issue came out. You might be looking for a bomb, looking for a metal, but there are those who will come in powder form, and then perhaps wherever they'll go, they'll just do their thing, and they come out with a gadget that can explode. Let me call it that way. I don't know the right word to say it. But I'm just wondering, what do you think about the security people that we find on the malls? A spot check that GBS did showed that what they have cannot actually, they can't retaliate if they come across such an incident like the one at the Westgate. They can't do nothing. Them too, they are at the risk. They don't have guns. They don't have nothing. What should be done actually?
I think what should be done is first and foremost, we should have like people, first and foremost, the guards. The guards should be well trained in terms of knowing how a gun looks like, first and foremost. When you search a person, when you're screening a person with that metal detector, when it sounds, tell the individual, remove all the metallic devices in your pocket. And don't do what? Don't try to say that you're searching an African or a Kenyan, then you leave the Muzungu. We've had instances whereby the Muzungu just passes with a big bag and goes in, then you don't search him thoroughly. So they should do a thorough search on everyone. Then in addition to that, we should also have them being trained on how a bomb looks like. What do you do when, for example, you've spotted that the individual in a particular car has a bomb? What's the next course of action? In addition to that is that we have this instance whereby when you drive your car to the mall, we usually have people who do what? Who go around the car with the mirror. Then they never tell the person who is inside to come out also and be searched, because he'll just go around, then you'll just leave the person who is inside there just seated. You haven't checked inside the car, you just open the boot, checked, then closed.
There are guns which can fit around the pocket actually.
Exactly.
Now, this begs a question. Then how do we go about this? Do we see our security officers to the malls and other public facilities, or do we kind of arm these security people with guns? How do you go about it?
I wouldn't talk about arming like everyone, because when if you have everyone carrying a firearm, you'll have a scenario whereby it will be like the Wild West. Everyone has a gun and can do anything. But we should have instances whereby, even if it is allocating a policeman with the individual who is doing the search, that would be a best course of action, so that if anything happens, there is somebody who can deal with that particular situation. Also, in addition to that, is that we could also have trained sniffer dogs. We could also have trained sniffer dogs that, for example, when you're doing the search, it also looks inside the vehicle, also outside the vehicle, and also the individual. Yeah.
And just looking at it, there's a very big scrutiny when it comes to kind of the way that we are lacking in terms of personnel of security officers. What is the way forward? Because at one moment we saw the recruitment being halted at one moment. Secondly, here comes the extension of the training time is extended, and that leaves a little bit kind of a gap. What do you think is the way forward on this?
Way forward is that we have many young people who are well educated, who are seeking jobs. Now, I believe that if we have these individuals being trained on, for example, being recruited in the police force or in the intelligence, it would go a great way towards enhancing the security levels in our country. Because we have a scenario whereby most of the young people are exposed to a lot of things, considering the fact that we have games that are violent. We also have movies that are violent. So it tends to change the mind of young individuals. And currently, as you know, if you fail to get a job, you look for the next alternative. And that next alternative might be being recruited by
Before, I know we don't have time, but another security question: how did those firearms actually get here? From maybe, I don't know, the borders or maybe the airport to Westgate? Where do you think the lapse is?
The lapse basically is we need to have a proper screening process, whereby when we have checkpoints along the border points, they're properly manned and individuals are properly screened. In addition to that is that we have officers maybe who are not compromised in these positions, because we have a tendency whereby if, for example, you see a person coming in and he has a particular good and he doesn't want it to be searched, there should be a thorough search on that particular individual.
Okay, we don't have time. Your parting shot towards security matters in the country.
It's only one thing, that we should take security seriously. And like the last gentleman said, let's, as Kenyans, after 2 months, let's not forget that we are still in a war. And the war that we are fighting is terrorism. So security should be heightened across board, not only by the government, but also as business people, as individuals, and also as institutions.
Yes, this has been the Zoom in Africa show. Many things are going on when it comes to security. We know that right now we are trying to establish a forensic center that is courtesy of the little money that was allocated to this. We also have kind of right now there's more of reshuffling happening courtesy of Kimayo and the other top security officers, and we hope that this will beef up more security, but it also takes more of a personal endeavor to see to it that even you know your neighbor, where do you live? Do you know your next neighbor? Do you know where they work? These are very, very important, pretty gritty issues of which would help the national security. I have been your host, Henry Kurian, on behalf of all the crew who have made this possible. Thank you for staying tuned to GBS.
Indeed, thank you so much for keeping it GBS, and I advise you keep it right here for more informative shows. My name is Florence Ndongo. Until the next time we meet on the same show of Zoom in Africa, enjoy the rest of your viewing.